send American boys 9,000 or 10,000 miles away from home to do what Asian boys ought to be doing for themselves. I have today ordered to Vietnam the Air Mobile Division and certain other forces which will raise our fighting strength from 75,000 to 125,000 men almost immediately. This will make it necessary to increase our active fighting forces by raising the monthly draft call from 17,000 over a period of time. Our objective is the independence of South Vietnam and its freedom from attack. We fight for the principle of self-determination, that the people of South Vietnam should be able to choose their own course without violence, without terror, and without fear.
Who killed Kennedy? Was the Warren Commission, appointed by Lyndon Johnson, supposed to get to the truth of the Kennedy assassination, or to make sure no one gets to the truth? Did the Warren Commission deliberately ignore vital evidence and witnesses? And the only clear agreement seems to be that Lee Harvey Oswald was not a lone assassin. So indelibly is the event locked in our minds that these images seem to have happened only yesterday. But whether you find it to be new information, shock, and perhaps even make you angry. Edgar Hoover and Lyndon Baines Johnson stood to gain a great deal by the president's death. Still troubles many today was an executive order signed by President Johnson that locked away an immense amount of assassination evidence in the National Archives until the year 2039.
Two people who could be considered guilty. It would be Lyndon Johnson and his next-door neighbor and old buddy, J. Edgar Hoover. And they felt like the only way they could protect the country was to get rid of the leader.
President Lyndon Baines Johnson went operational with Northwoods on June 8, 1967, during the Six-Day War. During the Six-Day War between Israel and the Arab nations, the USS Liberty was sent by Johnson to collect electronic intelligence in the eastern Mediterranean. The clearly marked U.S. intelligence ship was 14 miles off the coast of Israel in international waters. Israeli surveillance aircraft flew low over the ship and clearly identified it as an American vessel. At 2 p.m. that afternoon, the USS Liberty was attacked by 3 Mirage 3 fighter bombers. USS Liberty was then attacked by 3 Israeli torpedo boats bearing Israeli flags. The torpedo gunboats opened fire with high-caliber machine guns and launched torpedoes. A single torpedo struck the ship, blowing a hole in both sides, entering the ship and leaving a 30-foot exit hole when it exploded. Then the torpedo boats began strafing life rafts in the water, an international war crime. While all of this was happening, the oversized American flag flew clearly above the ship. 2 aircraft carriers in the Med responded by launching fighter aircraft. Unbelievably, they were recalled by the White House. Rear Admiral Geist, then commanding the carriers in the 6th Fleet, called Washington personally to confirm the recall order. Secretary of Defense McNamara came on the line, and then President Johnson himself told Geist, "I want that goddamn ship going to the bottom. No help. Recall the wings." I've interviewed former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Thomas Moorer. I've interviewed the admirals that were on the line who heard what President Johnson said. I've even talked to the head JAG officer of the Navy who was ordered to falsify the reports and cover up what had really happened. One of the Israeli pilots has gone public as well, saying that 3 times he refused over his radio to headquarters to attack the ship, saying clearly that it was an American ship in international waters and an ally. He was ordered under threat of court-martial to engage the ship. President Johnson had personal control over the ship, parked it in the Mediterranean, made a backroom deal with Israel to attack it with an order to kill all aboard. Then the attack on the ship was to be blamed on Egypt. The U.S. would enter the war and take over the entire Middle East.
For a long time it was obvious that it was deliberate. Well, why didn't we respond? The election of 1968 was coming up. The Johnson administration apparently didn't want an issue. And why didn't my colleagues in the Senate respond? Well, I think it was the same reason. They were all outraged and indignant, but I don't think anybody wanted to raise the issue. They were all intimidated.